My name is Jack Bonnell. I'm a recent graduate from TCU undergrad, just this past spring, 2024, with a BS in chemistry. I joined my research lab, Dr. Kayla Green's research group, in the spring of my freshman year and started working towards my project in the following fall. I'm now a medical student at the Burnett School of Medicine at TCU, and I'm continuing my research with Dr. Green over these next 4 years. So, kind of. I'm now that I've kind of broken the ground for this research that I did, the iron coupling, I'm going to be using that towards my new project. So I'm going to be using the catalysis that I worked on in undergrad, and now I'm going to be using that to make new molecules that will hopefully be Alzheimer's therapeutics. Yeah, so I'm still figuring that one out in medical school. As of right now, I'm kind of looking towards anesthesia. I feel like that has some overlap with chemistry. So I've enjoyed shadowing that when I was an undergrad, and my interactions with anesthesiologists so far have been pretty positive in medical school. So that's what I'm aiming for right now, but we'll see where the future takes me. Yeah. So in my project, I focused on the synthesis and characterization of a library of iron-based ligands that were going to act as catalysts for a chemical reaction that we call the Suzuki-Miara catalysis. There's already reagents out there that can run this reaction, but they're used to make commercial products and a lot of medications that are pretty commonplace in daily life. The issue is that the catalysts that they use as of right now are extremely expensive. They have a very negative impact on the environment, and they're oftenly sourced fairly unethically. So the goal of my project was to create a new line of catalysts that could be used that faced none of those same issues. That I could. So the catalysts that are already out there on the market, they all make use of palladium metal as one of the core parts of the chemical. And palladium is where most of these issues come from. It's extremely expensive because it's a rare metal. It's often sourced pretty unethically. So there's mines in Africa that take advantage of the workers there, extremely poor working conditions, things like that. And at the same time, mining it has huge negative impacts on the environment because you're just tearing giant holes in the ground to get tiny amounts of this metal out, and it's really polluting the environment. My catalysts use iron instead. And the joke that we like to make in my lab is that iron is dirt cheap. Iron is the fourth most abundant element in the earth. So it is literally found in the dirt that you see outside. So it faces none of those issues. It's extremely cheap. You could go outside, dig up a hole in your yard, and extract at least some iron. And the real tricky part here was seeing if we could make it work like the palladium did. So in my research, the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't even touch iron or palladium. It was all focused on finding and making the molecules that I could put that iron into, and hopefully they would work. And a huge part of this project was focused on the environmental and economic area. And so most of my research was spent not just making those molecules, but finding ways to make them the cheapest way possible, the most effective way possible, not wasting any resources, things like that. And so that was the first 2.5 years of the lab. It didn't look like I was doing anything towards this project. I was just playing with molecules in the lab. Once I got a pretty good synthetic route for the 5 or 6 molecules I was using, I was then able to focus on the reaction that I'd be testing them with, doing that Suzuki-Miara catalysis. And then I did the exact same thing. I tried to make it as efficient as possible before I started using the molecules on it, just so I wouldn't waste anything. And then finally, in the span of 2 to 3 weeks, I was able to run all of the test reactions that actually got me my results. And so what's kind of funny is in the process of Bowler, we first have the departmental honors thesis, and then afterwards you can advance to the bowler. And in the like 2 to 3 week span between those two presentations, I got new results and was able to update my table because they were just pouring in. And so I had like 5 or 6 additional data points that I could use to narrow the margins of error. And so it was really a slow build up to all of the results piling in like 1 month. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked it worked. I'm not gonna lie. Palladium is pretty great at doing these reactions. Like the guy Suzuki, who came up with the Suzuki Mirror catalysis, he won the Nobel Prize for it back in, I believe, the 80s. So I kind of thought I was chasing like an unattainable point, like goal. But in the end, I believe that the yields that could be found with palladium reagents were 68%, and I got 65% just using iron, and that's within margin errors. So it worked. So my research lab should be putting out a paper soon. I need to check back in with them actually, that this research is going to be a pretty big part of. But right now it's still extremely preliminary. I just did 4 or 5 reagents for one specific reaction. So I proved that it worked at a level similar to palladium. So we can publish that, but we're trying to publish a lot more. And so actually right now in my old research lab, I think there's now 3 or 4 undergraduate students who are all working to expand this research. So try it with new reactions, new reagents, trying to make it more effective overall. And then we'll have a lot of results that we can publish to get out there to the scientific community. I'd say one of the tough parts was that it was such a slow buildup. Some of my friends in other research labs were getting results, getting data like sophomore, junior years, and none of mine came in until the last 2 months of my senior year. And so there was so much work with what seemed like no payoff. And so at times when I had like difficult course loads, it was hard for me to find motivation to get into the lab and work on that. I'd like rather be getting immediate results by getting my homework done, getting that turned in. And so sticking to that was difficult. But what really helped was I was working with one of my graduate students in the lab, who has now gotten her PhD, Dr. Katie Smith. She was someone who she and I were just bouncing ideas off each other with this project all the time. Like we would sometimes just text each other randomly at like midnight and be like, wait, what if we tried this? And then we would be like, okay, let's talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to bed. And then we would talk about it the next day. We'd go to a whiteboard, draw everything out. And sometimes it would be nonsense, but sometimes it would be the next step that we would use to make these reactions better. Yeah, I think I'll drive home like the real reason for it. A huge part of this was the like emphasizing the negative parts of the palladium metal that people have been using already. Palladium is used for actually a lot of things. Like the reason that catalytic converters in cars are actually stolen a lot is because they have some palladium and platinum in them. And that's what like takes the carbon monoxide that your engine can make and converts it to CO2 or something else instead. So that's not as bad. And so it's kind of everywhere. But as of right now, I'm rapidly scrolling to my old PowerPoint to find the statistic. 12%, I believe, of like medications that are being made of all pharmaceuticals are currently using these palladium catalysts to be made. And a point I was really driving home, or trying to drive home at least, in my presentations was that, yeah, it's great at doing the chemistry. It's bad in every other regard. And so the main points were, first of all, it's just really expensive to buy. It's a super rare element and it's hard for people to mine. And so one of the palladium catalysts that we could use costs $28,000 for what we call a mole. And some of ours were able to make for only $6,000. So it's still a lot, but it's less than a quarter of what these palladium reagents cost. there were a whole host of issues back in like 2012 where workers in South Africa were protesting for their rights in these palladium mines, and they were all fired. They were complaining about their working conditions. They weren't being given safety training. Like they were dying, and instead of addressing these concerns, they were all fired, and some of them were shot during the protests. So like that was one of the driving forces because we don't want to use palladium when it's causing all of these issues. It's causing, I think I found a quote somewhere about a city up in Russia where they were mining this stuff. And they say that ash falls from the sky like black snow. People there get cancer at uh, way higher than the national average. The life expectancy is 10 years below every other city in Russia. It's that bad for the people around them, not even the ones working in the mines. Whereas, like I was saying before, you can get iron at no cost at all. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost the environment almost anything. And it's not killing people like the palladium is. So we were really focusing on trying something else.